So we look at, like we talked about, like kind of communication as a big factor, and if that's a weak area for you, then find a way to improve that, and that could be from just practicing communication, practicing speaking. Could be coaching is obviously a great way to do it, and kind of kill two birds with one stone. We talked about developing your hands as a skill set, which clearly there's residency programs for. My experience with those in particular is that I feel like the clinicians that come out of there immediately are not necessarily highly skilled, but they definitely have more and more tools. And then once they get this experience, those skills are honed quite nicely. So there's no question about that. And then there's the exercise progression, and I'd say just movement knowledge, which I don't know that's taught very well. I think maybe through a sports clinical residency, you're probably going to get more of that today as far as looking at movement screening and movement evaluation, perhaps more biomechanics and those things. But my fear is that in selecting that, to make sure that if that's a process you want to master, that you end up in a clinically relevant environment in that scenario, and you're not ending up in a research lab at a university, because that's probably not going to translate to what you can do in a typical clinic, because you're probably not going to have a $30,000 piece of equipment to test somebody. You may not have a force plate. There's many tools you're not going to have that form the basis of some of those residency programs, so be cautious with that. And then be cautious too with the amount of time spent on-site emergency care. Not to say it's not valuable, but there are people who do that with the EMTs, with the athletic trainers. I think they do it very, very well. And I would support PTs in that role if that's the role you want to be in, but that's typically not the role we find ourselves in most clinical jobs.
And our licenses don't cover it.
Sure. Right.
Back to the exercise thing, though, what I did and what I think we all did to learn that was go to the strength and conditioning community.
Right.
I think the PT community does a terrible job of teaching that, but I think the strength and conditioning community has mastered it.
Pretty much got it down.
Go to the expert. That's where I went to learn. That's where I think all of you guys went to learn that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think to Russ's point, you gain that scientific knowledge, gain that foundation, and you get some of that in school, and there's much more to gain. And then you start taking that and you start thinking about, okay, how would I challenge this tissue? How can I make the body adapt? We've talked about that before, and how critical that is. And that community of strength conditioning, that's what it's all about. And we certainly don't talk about that enough in any of the rehab programs that I've seen. It just doesn't seem to be a focal point of addressing. Mm-hmm. So my experience was kind of like a top down, like I did a lot of strength conditioning stuff first, and then went into PT, and then it was easy for me because I was able to see the goal of strength conditioning and say, like, I can see if someone was to come to me in PT, I know what they were trying to accomplish. I know what we were going to go back to, so to speak. So it was easy for me to kind of start to draw a continuum or a plan to get a person to that point. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I see missing in clinicians as well, is what are we trying to accomplish at the end of the day? If this person wants to run again, how familiar are you with the biomechanics of sprinting and training a sprinter? Mm-hmm. Or if this person wants to play football again, how familiar are you with the fundamentals of that sport, or training that sport in the weight room, so that we can properly prepare them as a clinician for that event? And so again, for that reason, I think going to that community and being involved there it's epic to become a sports orthopedic PT for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know why it resonated with me, but deconstruct their goal as I think about it. It's nice.
Yeah.
I don't know, just had to simplify what you just said. Deconstruct your goal.
Yeah, that's the
like I think about like teaching a younger therapist, and I think we've all had an opportunity to be a mentor for any of the clinicians in our own company, and it's how do you teach them to look ahead? And you could just simply listen to the client. Once you establish their goal, then when you're done with them, what you should do that night is deconstruct their goal all the way back down to where they are right now. Right. And then you have your pathway.
Yep. And I think that skill set requires you to know the end game, yes. Right? And then steps to take to get there. Yeah. And I do think there's a lot of gray area there. Like if you just simply learn biology and then you learn pathology, but you really haven't learned training and impact and stress and adaptation at a high level, I think it's harder to put that map in place.
But that roadmap will teach you where your deficits are. So you as a person can find, okay, where am I deficient in? If I don't have a mentor around me in this current moment, let me try this simple exercise. Let me meet a new person that comes in and sees me. Let me have them tell me their biggest goal they have in the PT process. And can I deconstruct it with every single phase involved? And there's a gray area, and it's like, I need to learn more about that part of the human development process.
Yeah,
Which really is our movement continuum,
exactly.
right? Like it's, pain on the left, mobility, strength, speed, power, performance. It's exactly what it
Yeah.
is. You got to be able to master that whole thing. You got to be able to blend that from one side to the other. You couldn't deconstruct that without knowing all of those phases.
That's right.
That's what we believe in. That's what we've developed, and that's what we teach here at our facility and with our team is really how to see that continuum from start to finish, from pain to performance, and then be able to deconstruct it and look at these steps along the way to get them where they want to go. So I guess at the end of the day, I would say that the advice would be find a limiting factor, address it, and if that's one of those areas of whether communication, manual therapy, exercise progression, tissue adaptation, and then find ways to do it. I would say that my greatest advice would be to get around someone who does it really, really well. And if you were to ask me what's the best Con Ed course I can go to or what's the best way I could develop myself, I would fly to see whoever you think does that the best in the world and hang out with them for a week and just ask if you can shadow them and stay in the clinic and just watch them do what they do and ask them questions as you go through the process. And to me, that's how I would learn it the best. And maybe that's not so much for others, but I think that what I gained from my internships and it was the ability to do that, and that's what I did during that time. Was I found the best in the world at doing what they would do, and I followed them, and I took every chance I could get to be around some of the greats. So whether that be it was Mike Boyle, it was Don Chu, it was Mark Verstegen, it was Gray Cook, and being around those guys and watching them go through their process on the ground, and really my internships gave me that opportunity. So I didn't feel the need to get it somewhere else. But I'd say seek that and acquire it. However it is that you can get it done.
Well said.
But for us, that's one thing that we do offer is a mentorship program that does this and provides that need and really takes that kind of strength conditioning model as it applies to therapy. And then we work with our clinicians and really develop them along that way. Or we work with folks on the remotely as well that may not be part of our team. So if that interests you or if you see value in that, then that's something to reach out to us about, and we'd be happy and delighted to help for sure.